Our second speaker is actually delivering the presentation very timely for this time of year. Shirley Rowell, who is currently the president of Carrollwood Toastmasters. Have you ever wondered about the officer roles and how they bring skills, service, and leadership to our club? Shirley will be reviewing a little bit about that and having a panel discussion. And I can tell you from experience, Shirley has taken the word volunteerism and really has tattooed it on her Toastmaster heart, because she volunteers a lot. And I can tell you, by volunteering a lot, she brings a lot of knowledge and skills back to the Carrollwood Toastmasters Club that can really enhance and really embellish any of our members. Ms. Shirley Rowell, serving our Carrollwood Club. Please give a big round of applause for super volunteer of Carrollwood, Shirley Rowell.
Woo, come on, Shirley.
Thank you, Toastmasters and guests. This is one of my favorite subjects, is the club officer roles. What a wonderful way for you to grow. Tonight, we will be talking through a panel of 3 of our most distinguished Toastmasters. And I would like for everyone to mute except the panelist, which is Andy Bern, John Morse, Brenda Alloco, and me. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If we have time, we will go over those and or ask you your questions if you have any. To begin with, I'm going to be calling on Brenda Alloco, and I would like for you to let us know briefly your experience as a club officer and when you became a DTM.
Thank you, Shirley. There are several officer roles that I portrayed in the club. The very first role that I had was that of president. And the reason why I was chosen as president and voted in was I started the club. That's how I became a Toastmaster. Is I organized the club for the corporate that I worked with, which was Disney. I can tell you that the leadership role of president, remember, Toastmasters is an all-volunteer group, which means unlike work where people have to do what you ask them to do because they either report to you or you can affect their pay or their review, as Mr. Don Prue had as an example. But in a volunteer organization, they can just say, I'm a volunteer, I don't have to do anything. So being an officer in a club helps you to really strengthen the leadership role and get everybody to follow your ideas. And that's really about leadership, learning how to communicate with various individuals so that they're on board with you and they want to follow you. They want to be on that journey with you. I became a DTM 3 years after I started Toastmasters. And that's because I did all the things that people thought are the hardest things first without realizing what I was doing. I started the club. I became an officer in the club. We chartered in March, and in May of that year, I found myself as an area director, and the rest is history. But I can tell you that the other role that I really, really enjoyed was VP of membership. And that was because I could go out to individuals and say, did you ever want to learn about leadership? Did you ever want to give yourself an education on communication? The tagline for Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And that is really exactly what it does. It helps you become a better leader because of knowing different ways to communicate.
Thank you, Brenda. We will be asking more questions a little later, but I really Wow, start right off, be a president, jump right in. Although you did have some skills when you first did that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Morse, the same question. Can you tell us briefly about your club officer experience and when you became a DTM?
Well, I first became a DTM in, I believe it was 1985, and that was old school DTM. That was when our symbol was a globe with a picture of the United States of America on it. They've since changed that and changed all the requirements, and I've become a new world DTM since that time. However, my first opportunity to become club officer was when I joined Tampa Toastmasters, and lo and behold, I was asked to be the sergeant at arms. I thought that that was a wonderful, a great opportunity, a wonderful opportunity. I was flattered that I'd be asked. I was surprised. I didn't really think that I had made much of an impact in the 2 or 3 months that I had been a member of the club, and all of a sudden the club executive committee or the whatever committee it was who was in charge of soliciting for officers asked me to be the sergeant at arms. I've since repeated that role here at Carrollwood on at least 2 occasions, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. It's one of the best offices that you can have, and it gives you the opportunity to help get people into the club. It gives you the opportunity to know who's coming in and to greet them when they come in and to make sure that everything is set up right for the meeting to start on time. We set a standard at the Carrollwood Club for starting our meetings on time. We've been doing it for a good number of years, and it makes a huge difference. I have had since opportunities to be in area and division roles, and the clubs that don't get off to a good start seem to never really get rolling. So the role of Sergeant at Arms was really important to me. I guess I did well enough as Sergeant at Arms because when I completed my term as Sergeant at Arms, I was then nominated to be the president of the club. And I was again shocked at that. Yet it was a wonderful opportunity to be with people that I really respected. And at that time, Toastmasters, by the way, Andy, at that time, Toastmasters was an all male organization. And we had a lot of fun. We changed that in a year or two after that first experience. However, things have changed, and I think things have changed for the better. And now we have same opportunities to lead, to develop the opportunity to develop our skills in areas that far exceed becoming a significant communicator.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing about the role of Sergeant of Arms. We will be asking you another question about that a little later on, but right now we just want to move on. And Andy Bern, will you tell us your experience of being a club officer and when you became your first DTM? Andy.
Thank you very much, Shirley. I joined Toastmasters in 2012, and I got my first DTM in 2016, my second in 2020. I'm working on my third one right now. As far as club leadership, I've served as president, vice president education, vice president of public relations, and those are the roles that I've been involved in. I've also actively participated with the people involved in vice president of membership. There are 7 primary roles in club leadership. The 8th one is the immediate past president. And as Brenda can talk about, when she starts a club, there's no past president. You are the one that starts the club. But in a typical situation, a club that's been around for a while, you have 8 members. The Toastmasters program, educational program, and leadership program is dependent upon three legs of a stool: communications, leadership, and the third leg is service. And being an organization that is voluntary, service is prime. You have to put the organization ahead of you, and that's one of the things that you need to do in a volunteer organization.
Thank you very much, Andy. Good points that you made about service and volunteering. How does volunteering to be a leader in Toastmasters help you with meeting your goals as being a better public speaker? And I will ask that to Brenda.
Thank you, Shirley. Volunteering in Toastmasters, especially these days because of Zoom, I get to attend more meetings than ever before, and I get to be exposed to so many different personalities and so many different cultures that it helps me when I go into a venue to size up and to get to know my audience a lot quicker. And anyone who has done any public speaking knows that the first thing you need to do is you need to understand who your audience is so that you can tailor whatever your message is so that your audience is going to understand it, they're going to hear it, and they're going to really appreciate you as a speaker.
Thank you. Our focus tonight is really on officer roles because this is what's coming up. And I apologize, the DTM, I'm just assuming everyone knows DTM, and that is a distinguished Toastmaster who has gone through a lot of speaking and leadership projects and excellence in service. So tonight's focus is on our officer roles for Carrollwood. So what do you think is your favorite position that you enjoy the most and why? Andy Bern.
Relative to the issue of mentoring, which you just talked about, that is a key role that everyone in the club can be involved with, but it's specifically one of the responsibilities of the Vice President of Education. In fact, if you look at the leadership handbook, there are 7 distinct objectives or roles for the Vice President of Education. But let me just focus in on mentorship. One of the true values of Toastmasters comes in the chartering, and it states that Toastmasters is an experiential-based education system. That means that you learn by doing. You learn by gathering information from others that have done this before. And there's an expression that says, this comes from John Maxwell, you know the way, show the way, and do the way, which means that you don't just talk the talk, but you do the talk. And mentoring is very much different from coaching. Coaching, you're helping someone learn a specific skill or challenging them to do something specific. Mentoring is a more long-term process, and you have different goals associated with that. And Toastmasters, between levels 2 and 3, has a whole section on mentoring. Everyone should take it. It's a good thing to go through. Shirley.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Good points. John, what are some of the benefits of being an officer versus just being a club member? What did you see that was a value for doing an officer role?
Oh my gosh. Being an officer meant that you had to be part of a team of officers. And it meant that you had to bring everyone in the club along with you. You had to know how and develop a skill in terms of being able to create a goal for the position that you had and then achieve that goal through the 6 months or 1 year that you have to serve. And Toastmasters is designed not to have permanent officers, not to have people serving as president repeatedly, 1 4-year term or anything like that. It's designed to make sure that when you're the president, you serve for a year, then you move on to give someone else the opportunity to develop the same sort of skills that you've developed during your term. That's one of the great opportunities Toastmasters provides. Our motto in Toastmasters is where leaders are made, where leaders are made. And it's just amazing how well you are able to develop skills in communication, how well you are able to develop skills in terms of team building. And it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to have that in your background. It's helped me in many, many, many ways outside of Toastmasters in a wide variety of organizations that I've been part of. I know that it pays off. And I also know that you're going to be rewarded by the experience. And maybe I can talk about that a little later.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Brenda, could you share something about a couple of the roles? I think we've talked about the Vice President of Education. We talked about the Sergeant of Arms. And would you kind of talk about some of the roles that we haven't shared about?
Vice President of Public Relations. That prepares.
Somebody needs to mute. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. That really prepares you to learn how to market the club. And with that, you need to understand your club cultures. What kind of individuals are you going to attract to the club? Traditionally, a club is going to lose about 8 to 10 members every single year, which is why part of your goal is to get 8 members every year. It's just statistics. It's a fact of life. But to be a healthy club, you really need to have a good 15, 20 to 25 members. Why? Because 7 members are officers. And when you look at the roles that each person plays in the Toastmasters Club, well, that takes up 7. So if you have everybody with a role other than speaker, who's going to be the speaker? That means people are doing double duty. So you need to be able to be comfortable to go out there to know and understand the culture of your club and what type of individuals you want to attract, not like-minded individuals, other than the fact that they want to improve on how they speak. An individual that I'm so proud of and so awesome to get to know was I had gone to another conference with another district, and I went to a workshop where this individual, her workshop was, "Can you hear me now?" English was not her first language. She was from Thailand. She joined Toastmasters while she was in college to help her with her English. In doing so, that got her noticed at work and got her promoted at work. So when we're looking out there for members, don't just think about the members that only speak English. Think about an individual who may need to improve their English because it's not their first language. And I know there's other clubs out there that are Spanish influenced. So it's our way of learning another language. So marketing, the VP of marketing is really an important role to make sure that the club stays healthy.
Thank you, Brenda. Now I know that we didn't really go over the duties of each role, but they are on Toastmasters International and they present them beautifully. And if you are interested in one of those roles, you need to speak to Wesley as he's heading up the nominating committee. But I'd like to ask one more question before we take questions and answers. And that is the Sergeant of Roll, the Sergeant at Arms right now is really different since we're on Zoom. But how do you see that role changing in the future? And why would you want to take on Sergeant at Arms now? And I will ask Andrew. Andy.
And the question is, why would you want to take on Sergeant at Arms?
No, I'm sorry. The question, I'll repeat it, is that it is different. How do you see it going in the future? And then you can say, why would you want to take it on?
The future is always changing. And I think that the experience that we've had talks about the resiliency of Toastmasters, the volunteer structure, and the overall structure of the organization. John mentioned that he lived through a part of Toastmasters where it was only men. It was 1973 that Women First got admitted to Toastmasters. And that's not really that long ago. We've had many women presidents of Toastmasters, and I've known several of them. I believe that one of the things that you have to know is that there's a lot of learning to be had, and there are a lot of resources to get that information. Be happy to share with that offline to anyone that wants to hear.
Thank you, Andy. I can see that our time is getting to a close, and I want to give people an opportunity if they were in the chat. But that is true. Sometimes we can't always give a pat answer because things are always changing. But if we volunteer, we jump in and we take a role, we're always going to be learning something. So thank you for being on the panel. I really appreciate you and all your answers, and appreciate the DTM that you work for, because we know that that is not an easy task. And so you're a good representation of our club. Now, this time, I thank you, and we will answer some of the questions through the chat and a little bit later, but our time is up, and I really appreciate everyone that participated. Thank you.
Thank you, Primo. So, Shirley, first of all, you chose the best topic with the most relevant to what we're focused on today. We're focusing on selecting our next set of officers, and you chose an opportunity to educate us about what it takes to be an officer, what's the experience of past officers in Toastmasters. I like that you chose not just 3 past officers, but actually 3 DTMs, which is the highest level that you can have as a Toastmaster. I like that each DTM explained their experience on a personal basis, not just from the explanation of what we've seen in the Toastmasters manual or what we've read online, but really their own experience. Excuse me. I like that I can hear you very clearly during your presentation. You did an excellent job of speaking up. You used a lot of gestures to support what you're saying. When I think about one of the aspects of this evaluation required vocal variety, I didn't see where you had a lot of opportunities for vocal variety. And when I looked at another aspect of it, which was eye contact, I noticed that you looked down before you read your questions. So perhaps I would suggest that when you're reading your questions, you glance at your questions before your time comes around to ask the next question. That way you're prepared with the question without having to look away from your audience to read. Let's see, besides that, I like that you moderated the section very well. The reason I say that is that you thanked each speaker or each panelist after they spoke. You expressed that, after they were finished speaking, that you would require more information from them going forward. You also complimented each panelist after they spoke. You monitored the fact that your time was almost up, and therefore you offered a chat as a way of posing questions and offering answers to those questions. So very good job for you, Shirley. And like I said, you chose the perfect time for the topic. So good job this afternoon. Thank you.